Warning, this podcast has stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
132 in Bush, I've got him at gunpoint.
They're pulling them out.
911, advise ready for escape.
God!
Oh. Uh-oh. There we go. Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Chuck.
Oh, and I don't belong here. I'm Marco.
Okay, and then now we have a guest on. His name is Aaron. Aaron, how you doing?
Good, guys. Thank you so much for this opportunity. How are y'all?
Good.
Good, man. Thanks for coming on.
Great. Yeah. Sorry to everybody who's watching on YouTube or listening. We're still working out some kinks when people are down and Tom's out. As you can tell, Tom's not here today. Tom had some stuff in his personal life that he had to take care of. But since we are merging these podcasts with Locker Room and War Stories, and we're one happy family, we have Marco. So,
hello. So I'm coming.
Producer Dylan's here.
Oh yeah, hey, thanks for coming in, Dylan. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
And sorry for the echo, everybody. In case you guys can't see from the background, I'm actually at work in the tattoo studio.
Yes.
So I apologize for a little bit of echo, and I'll try to do my best not to keep the fuckery down to a minimum, as this is the war story, not the locker room. But I can't guarantee anything.
Yeah. Now I just saw you the other day, Marco, but
You did.
Really didn't get a chance to catch up. What's going on with you?
Well, a long time. I'm sorry, this is not the locker room. Sorry, I can't get one. We're good, man. Austin is great. Loving it here in Texas. It's humid as fuck. Kids are back in school. Thank God for that. I don't know if Aaron, do you have kids?
I do. 5.
You do. I'm sorry. Did you say you have 5 kids, or he's 5? They're 5 years old.
No, that's correct, brother. The number is 5.
So you're making a fire team. Is what you're doing. Okay.
I'm just trying to defeat my enemies, man. One kid at a time.
One kid at a time. You're like fucking.
He's like, fire team's already there. I'm trying to do a fucking platoon, dude.
That's it, dude. He's fucking just breed them out. So you like going back to school is like a glorious time. It's almost like a badge of honor that you know every year you get past summer, you're like, damn, yeah. So
correct. Unless you're like me and you work at a school where your children also attend. So
are they there?
Oh,
yeah, man.
That's kind of cool.
Do you work
in a way it's great. In a way it's great,
Okay.
but sometimes I have to be like, I can't be dad right now.
Right.
Your teacher says you need to do those things, bro. Right.
Do you work in a capacity where you see them every day?
I do. I'm
do.
I'm a school safety officer now, so
okay.
I see them every day.
So you're not groundkeeper Willie, is what you're saying?
Correct.
I'm just checking. I don't want to, give miscredit where.
You do the school safety for this particular school, or do you do more?
No, I do it for this particular school. I'm posted at this particular school, and it is the school where my children go to school. Yeah.
Okay. How long have you been doing it for? If you don't mind me asking.
School safety overall,
Mm-hmm.
probably about 7 or 8 years. This particular school, this is rolling into my 3rd school year.
Okay. Was it a straightforward kind of transition from what you were doing before?
Yeah, my last duty assignment at the sheriff's office was I was a school resource deputy.
Okay.
And what happened was there was, school shootings seemed to be on the rise.
Right.
Even though data will tell you that they're not necessarily on the rise. It's just they're more reported now. They're coded different by the Department of Justice. So there was a big push where I live to have additional school resource officers.
Okay.
To include in the elementary schools.
Okay.
The sheriff's office couldn't hire enough school resource deputies to fill all the elementary schools in our area.
Gotcha.
So the school district started their own school safety officer division.
Okay.
And it happened around the time where there was a change in sheriff and politics. So a lot of us kind of saw it coming. So we jumped ship. because the pay was better at the school district and you got more time off.
Gotcha.
So I went to be a school. So I went from being a school resource officer to a school safety officer, which is not the exact same thing, but there's a ton of overlap. Then about 2.5 years ago, there was a pretty well-known and tragic school shooting at a private school in Tennessee in Nashville. And it just so happened that my children were going to a private Catholic school, and they had no. So they actually asked if they had a meeting. And before, I thought it was going to be a consulting gig, something like that. And I don't know if you guys know how Catholic education works. I'm not trying to go too far down the rabbit hole, but there's always a
Nope.
that controls money. And he looks at me and he's like, well, yeah, Aaron, that's fine, but like, I want you to do it. And I'm sure there's some things where we'll get into in this podcast. I've done some shit in my life and I'm still trying to make it to heaven. So I was like, I couldn't tell the man no. So I became a school safety officer at the school that I work at now. But I got to build the program from the ground up, which was awesome.
Okay.
And I could pick my kids over there.
So they didn't have a you said from the ground. I'm sorry, Chuck, go ahead.
Real quick, I'm gonna pause.
So before you, there was no. You said you implemented the program at the school that you're at right now, or the previous school.
Correct. At the school I'm at right now, there was no program. That's what brought me here.
Now, before we go back in time to the earlier ages of Aaron, when he was a wee lad, you were talking about obviously the rise or the more noticeability of school shootings. Was there any additional or special training that, and the sheriff's department at that point, that you went through? Any specific drills? Not obviously. We don't want to get too into the specifics of it because we don't. If anybody nefarious is out there, we don't want to give them any ups. But just kind of a general question and statement.
No, that's a great statement, and that's a great question. And I won't go into our exact security posture.
Of course, yeah.
But no, we are trained in addition to normal law enforcement type training. We do take extra training when it comes to school safety, security, and active shooter. And I'm actually an active shooter instructor.
Oh, okay.
So I brought that here. So we're very well equipped. If you come to my campus to do us harm, we'll do you harm back.
Right.
I like it. I like everything about what you're saying.
Aaron, I really like that. I think that's awesome. But we didn't just bring you here to talk about being a school resource, and that's not why you're here. But that's part of the reason why you're here, because it's part of your story. Now, you wrote in, and you've been a long-time listener. You even have one of the original T-shirts.
What?
Correct. The shield.
That's pretty cool.
The challenge coin shield one. Yeah.
That's cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
I actually need a new one, but they're out of stock.
Right, but we have some new ones. We have an FAFO one that's pretty cool. We can get that to you. That'd be pretty awesome.
Now he gets the coin now, right? For doing this, for doing the podcast, right? Is that right? You guys still doing the coin? Are we still doing the coin?
No. That's only a challenge. If you see us out in the wild, and you want to challenge us, you throw down a challenge coin. If I don't have my gold challenge coin, I'll take down your name and info, and I'll make a challenge coin and I'll send it to you. Same thing with Tom. If you see Tom out in the wild, and I think since now you guys are coming on. This is a sidetrack, but
I'm like,
you guys are coming on,
dude. There's a lot of
you need a coin
in Texas.
Matt needs a coin, and you need to carry that coin on you, and we'll do a gold one, and then see what happens. And we'll change it up a little bit to make it the new version. But
I gotcha.
But getting back on topic, so you grew up a rough kind of life. Your mom was a single mom, teen mom. Your dad had addiction issues. You joined the Marine Corps. You deployed to Iraq 4 times. That's a lot of times.
Damn.
You had a good military career, but you ended up getting a little bit of trouble with the UCMJ, right?
Correct.
Can you take us back as far as like where? I'm sorry, Chuck. Where did you grow up?
Okay, I grew up about 30 minutes north of Chattanooga, Tennessee, in a very rural, small area. I'm talking about 5,000 people, small.
That's small.
My graduating class, seriously, man, my graduating class had about 95 students in it.
Shit, that's more than mine.
Really?
Yeah.
I think mine was there. I think mine was about like 90. Like the graduating class was 95, but he's talking about like 5,000 people in the town. I think that was my high school. I think this guy in my high school was like a couple G's.
Yeah, man. A lot of farmland.
Dude, we had 250 people in our high school.
In your whole high school?
Yeah. Our graduating
No,
class
dude.
was like 60 people.
No, dude.
And that was only because we brought in the OFL people.
Oh no. We
Opportunity
had
for learning.
no. No, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Listen, my high school is fucking huge. It's like a city. So anyways, I'm sorry.
I know where you guys are, but so you grew up in a really rural small town.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And like I always tell everybody, like I was born poor. I was whiskey tango, man, just poor white trash straight from the trailer park.
Okay.
So when it came time to graduate, by that time, my mom had remarried and my dad had gotten his shit together and he'd remarried. And actually, by the time I graduated high school, as far as family unit goes, everything was Gucci.
Okay.
It was really rough into my teenage years. Poor, probably met the federal definition of homelessness. A lot of couch surfing, a lot of living with friends, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
But by the time I graduated, that had all kind of fallen away and there was some stability. Like I could have went to college.
Okay.
But I was like, I have to get out of this town.
So would you say that was
100% agree.
one of the leading decisions of you joining was basically the opportunity to, obviously, because college, I mean, I don't know what your options were for college, but it seems like college is one way to get out of your area, but obviously service is an immediate way to get out of the area.
Correct, because I knew that I could travel far and wide.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah, understood.
The crazy thing is that this is almost identical to one of my really good friends I grew up with, and I still in contact today. He joined the Marine Corps, but he had a really rough life growing up, from middle school to high school. Like he was couch surfing. His family lived somewhere, and I'm not going to put his info out, but kind of similar, same thing. Couch surfing, living with friends because he didn't want to live at home because his home wasn't necessarily great. And he ended up actually getting adopted by one of our really good friends on our football team, and his family brought him in, and he still loves his family, but they brought him in. And by the time he left to go to the military, the Marine Corps, that was the reason why, because we grew up in small towns, dude. Ain't no one's coming there to scout us, right? Unless you have great film for football or baseball or basketball, you're not getting scouted. No one's coming, right? So that was his only way out. He's like, I am not smart enough to go to college, so I'm going to the military. And that's why he left. And, it's almost identical. I've seen that story so many times in the Marine Corps where people, had a rough family life and they're like, I gotta get the fuck out. And
man, I think there's something, I can't put my finger on it, man, but I think there's something to it. And this is not a slight against any other service at all. But at least in the popular narrative, everybody hears like the Marine Corps is the hardest, the toughest, whether that's true or not, all that stuff is debatable.
Right.
But that's the mindset you have. And I think when you come from that kind of upbringing, you feel like you have something to prove. And it's like, the easiest way to prove it is to be able to do this thing.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are also not just searching for that, but they're searching for a family. They're searching from a new family. And Marine Corps is a small branch. It's tight knit, very tiny. You're already going into a small unit because that's just what it is. We're very small. And I think people who have broken family life, at home life, things like that, they search for that tight knit group of people. And that's not a slight against any other branch of the service. I think it's just, they're just so tight knit, and you can feel it when you walk into a recruiting station.
100%, man. And I think there's something to be said. I thought about this a lot.
The Air Force or the Navy.
Correct. Like, I thought about this. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Aaron. Was there ever a thought of a different branch? Or was it always you always knew Marines is it for you?
It came down to, honestly, two polar opposites. It came down to the Marine Corps or the Air Force.
Oh shit! Okay.
Oh shit!
Yeah, man. Yeah. And it just so happened that the day that I made up my mind, I'm like, no, man, I'm going to do this thing. Right.
Right.
The Air Force do was at lunch.
The Air Force. You went into the recruiting office and you're like, "Hey, I'm here to talk to the Air Force." Oh, he's at lunch. Cool, Marines. How you guys doing?
I'm
Well,
impatient,
no, and
so Marine Corps it is.
the Marine Corps dude was like, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? Don't worry about those guys, man. Here, I'm here. Come hang out with me. Come talk to me. And I was like,
Oh, he did his job.
Oh yeah,
Like-
he swooped in. So
Yeah.
what did you ultimately end up signing up? Because that's why we're here, you know.
Yeah, man. I ended up. I was a radio operator. I was a communications guy. I always
Okay.
say that
Okay, cool.
we're the redheaded stepchildren. Like nobody likes us when shit doesn't work, but they need us.
Dude, my comm guy was my best fucking friend and rode on my vehicle as my fucking number 2 because he was my best friend. He was the head comm guy. I was like, you're on my fucking track on every op, everything we ever did. I had him and 3 or 4 other crewmen.
That's what's up, man.
Yeah.
But yes, I actually joined when I was 17. My parents had to sign.
Wow.
So when I got to boot camp, I was still 17.
No, you were done with high school at the time.
I graduated. I graduated high school at the beginning of June.
Okay,
End of
gotcha,
May,
okay.
beginning of June.
Right.
And my 18th birthday wasn't until the end of June.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so you shipped off right away.
Bro, there was no turnaround time. There was supposed to be a few weeks. I was
Uh-huh.
going to go on a senior trip, and my recruiter was like, "Hey, man, we need you to ship next week." And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Now, around what year
Right.
was this?
2000.
2000. Okay. Well,
Oh shit.
and that's
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
you're
Oh,
that's the,
shit.
that's the
That's
shit.
right there.
Yeah.
Yo, but pre 9/11, I want to make it clear, man. I was a pre 9/11 Marine.
Right.
We were
You
still-
were not
we were still-
expecting what was about to happen.
Bro, I was like, Clinton's in office. The economy's good.
Right.
Grunge
Right.
music is out there. I was like, I'm going to see the world and get some money for college. Negative.
You're like about that.
So after just going through the 9/11 memorial and day to remember, what does that bring up for you? Because you obviously joined in 2000. You go to boot camp. You're in the fleet when the towers are hit. What does that do for your mindset and for the next phase moving forward inside of the Fleet Marine Corps? What does that look like?
Well, it was odd because I was actually in training. I was at MCT. I was at the School of Infantry when the USS Cole got hit.
Okay.
Pre 9/11. I don't know if you guys remember that. And one of my platoon mates, his brother was in the Navy and he was killed in the attack.
Oh shit.
And that's actually, yeah, man, he had to leave. Like, we're like, what's going on? Are we going to war?
Yeah.
But that is actually when we first started hearing the name Osama bin Laden. Like, I don't know like how early civilians knew that name, but we had it had bounced around. I mean, at 18, by that time I'm 18, I'm like, I have no idea. But like the powers that be, like it was a name that was in the ether.
Right.
But when 9/11 happened, I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan. I had graduated radio school in California, and I was stationed in Japan. It was my first duty station. And bro, I'll never forget this. I don't talk a lot about 9/11, but I will always tell this story. They woke us up, and my roommate at the time was this big yoked up Puerto Rican kid from New York. And I don't know if you guys remember back in the day when you had to call from overseas, you had to use a calling card.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
So-
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a very sterilized process. Like the operator didn't talk to you on a
Nope.
personal level, right?
Nope.
Like,
Nope.
Right.
Yeah.
But I remember this, phone lines were down. You couldn't get through to anybody. And we were trying to call home, and he couldn't get through to his pops. And it was just a melee. But I remember, I'll never forget this. I'm trying to call my family, and the operator, you could tell in her voice, like she was scared. And she was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Well, yes, ma'am, I'm fine." She goes, "Are we going to war?" I'm like, "Ma'am, I have no idea. I'm a 19-year-old
Right.
in the Marine Corps. I have no idea what's going on."
Some shit just popped off, and you're
Facts. And it was a lot of hurry up and wait.
Right.
And then we got stood down because obviously being stationed in Japan, you're worried about China and North Korea. You don't respond to that. But it was a pretty crazy first few days.
right. And then after that, that's when everything started to ramp up. The next year, you're getting more and clearer direction of what's going to happen. Thus moving forward, with deployment and things like that. Because you're in Oki, right? You're like you're full feet in. I'm ready to travel. I'm ready to go see the world. Let's go to fucking Okinawa first duty station. Your duty station in Oki, and the next thing you know, fucking towers are getting hit. Now we're technically going to war at this point. But it's not like the towers got hit for everyone who was younger, who wasn't there or didn't see it. It's not the towers didn't get hit and we went to war the next day.
No,
the fucking towers
no,
went hit.
no.
Mentality of mindset was we're going to fucking war the next day. When Bush got up there and was saying like, hey, we're gonna fucking like respond and and everyone came together. And next thing you know, a year later is when I think we're actually sending people over to I guess react to what had just happened.
I can't remember. I don't remember exactly when it kicked off, but you're right. There was this big urgency, like, man, we're about to go. Like I said, they woke us all up. We get all of our gear. We go to the flight line, and then we get stood down. But like I said, I don't remember, but there was a noticeable break between the event and the time we actually started deploying. But my time in Japan, it's kind of funny because I loved it. Like, it was supposed to only be a 1-year unaccompanied tour because I was a Sigma Marine at the time. And I got big into scuba diving.
Oh, shit.
And we would do training operations with the Australians. And that's some of the best scuba diving in the world, right?
Right.
So I kept extending my rotation. So I stayed there for 3 years. And finally they're like, by this time Iraq had happened. And they're like, hey man, there's a war going on. You have to leave. And I'm like, all right. So yeah, man. Because I would have wrote it all. I just would have wrote it out on the surfboard or in scuba gear my entire enlistment if they would have let me. But I went to airborne school, which is harder for a Marine to do because in the Marine Corps it's got to be MOS specific. It's not like the Army has entire airborne units.
Right.
But we had some extra slots for whatever reason. And I was like, what have I got to do to get one of these slots? And they're like, well, you don't need it. And I'm like, I know, but it looks sexy on my dress blues. And that's what's up. And they're like, well, you've got to re-enlist for 4 more years. I'm like, well, sign me the fuck up then. So that's what I did. I went to I re-enlisted, went to airborne school. Then I went to Camp Lejeune for 2nd Marine Division. And that's when all my real world deployments, that's when they started.
Where were you at in 2nd Mardiv?
I was at a headquarters company. Well, officially, I was at headquarters battalion, but from there, I would get TAD to see 6 Marines. At one point in time, I went TAD to the West Coast. Even though I didn't officially go to the West Coast, it was like in country in Iraq. I went to 1st Mardiv to 1-1.
Okay. But in Lejeune, you stayed with headquarters.
Correct, at headquarters battalion at communications company.
Okay. From what years to what years were you in Lejeune?
Would have been 2003, 2004 to 2008.
So we had overlap. Okay. I was there in 2008.
Okay. I got my EAS was in April of 2008.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah.
I was actually, I think, in 29 Palms or getting ready to go to 29 Palms for CAX for 6 months.
Okay.
So you enlisted in 2000. Towers are hit in 2001. You spend 3 years in Oki having fun and dicking off, right? Just living life and loving it, scuba diving and doing all this cool shit. The war kicked off and they're like, hey, you got to go. We're in a time of war. Okay. Kick rocks. And you're like, all right, cool. You re-enlist. So now you're at your 4 or just before your 4. You go to flights or you go to jump school. And now you're getting ready to go to 2nd Mardiv headquarters battalion in the United States Marine Corps. And at that point, how long are you there before you do your first pump out? What would that look like?
Probably 6 months. It was known before. And to be honest with you, I don't know if this is an actual, I know it sounds silly, but I don't know if this is a real memory or if this is just something that was told to me after the fact. But the monitor knew when they were cutting orders that I was going to be deployed as soon as I got there.
Okay.
So there was about 6 months when I got there. And then a group of us went TAD once we got into country to First Marines. So I was there for the Battle of Fallujah, but I always like to tell everybody in the world, man, I was a pogue, right? I was a personnel other than grunt. I don't hide from that fact. All the craziness that was the Battle of Fallujah, I don't know anything about that life, right? I mean, there was real no direct action for me other than, we had rockets and mortars and V-beds, but other than like quick reaction force and convoy ops, I was far removed from the battle space. But what happened is I ended up getting the reason I bring this story up is because I have infantry friends who feel some kind of way, because I was on guard duty one night and we took fire and we returned fire. I got a combat action ribbon. I have infantry friends that don't have one, and they get some kind of way about that. So I just want to make it very clear, man. I was a radio operator. I was a pogue. I was not kicking indoors. None of that stuff.
But
but you were in a firefight.
Yeah, so you earned it for sure. You definitely earned it. You took direct fire. Okay. And I think that's some scary shit. You definitely deserve it, just like if you would have taken a piece of shrapnel and it would have hit like a fucking part of the HESCO and a piece of the HESCO flew off and you got hit and bled, you would have a fucking Purple Heart.
It's funny you bring that up. I don't have one, but I have a colleague who that story is almost verbatim, and he has one.
Yeah.
And now his kids get free college.
Ain't that some shit? Hey, what time of the day did you start taking fire? Evening time? Was it late night? Midnight? Daytime?
It was in the middle of the night. I can't remember the exact time, but it was in the middle of the night, and it was past midnight. It was somewhere early morning, 02 maybe.
Was that the first time that your position started, or where you were stationed had taken fire? Was it common?
Correct.
Oh wow! Oh, okay, so just pop shots here and there, and this was an actual
a lot of rockets, a lot of mortars, and we started seeing V beds like toward the gate and stuff like that. And then we'd been out on some convoy ops that had gotten hit. But as far as direct fire at the FOB, that was the first time I was aware.
What was your, if you can remember, what was your initial thought process when this shit started kicking off?
Oddly enough, it didn't really click. And that's kind of, now and what I do now, I teach a lot of firearms training, self-defense, and security consulting. And I always talk about how it's nowhere like you think it is. Like on TV, it's like, it took me a minute to realize, this is direct fire. Like this is a firefight. Like there's bad guys shooting at us. Like it really did take me a split second to be like, oh, this is what's happening.
It does.
So honestly, I wasn't that. I mean, the adrenaline was up. I'm not saying I wasn't scared, because I was, but it wasn't like a holy shit moment. Like it was once I realized what was going on.
Right.
There were several seconds where I was like, the fuck is all this?
Your brain hasn't had a chance to catch up and realize what the fuck is going on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Same thing happened to me when I got into a shooting. Next thing I know, this guy's pointing a gun at me, and I'm like, it is at nighttime, and I'm like, is this motherfucker pointing a gun at me? And it took me a minute to realize, like, I think that's a fucking barrel of a gun.
How far away was he?
About a football field, maybe a little less, at night in the middle of an alley with a fucking overhead light lamp illuminating the backlight, backlight or whatever.
Yeah.
He's backlit big time, but it was hard to see because he's a big black dude wearing dark clothing, and it's dark. And when you have shadows behind him, it's so hard to see. It'd be hard to see anybody. Sure. But especially someone wearing dark clothing who's darker skinned, it's very difficult.
Well, and from that far away.
Yeah, and you're very far. Like, and I was like looking, I was like, the fuck? Is he pointing? Because I knew he was armed, and I was like, the fuck? And then my partner, my buddy, my classmate comes running over, and he's like, he's gonna shoot. And I'm like, that's a gun. That's a fucking gun. And then and I was like, fuck. And then officer involved shooting occurred. So yeah, I totally get that. I mean, it's common. It makes so much sense because it takes a minute for your brain to catch up. It's 5 seconds for your brain to realize a threat's a threat, and it takes 5 seconds to realize the threat is no longer a threat. So it is what it is. So
It's
after
interesting.
that, who's your?
I'm sorry. It's just
Oh, no,
on
keep
that
going.
point. Sorry. It's interesting because for someone like myself that's not been, hold on. Right, knock on wood, that has not been in a firefight situation like that. And that looking at videos, seeing plenty of videos, not only being part of the show, but just from my feed now, from being a part of the show, I see it very, very common now. I see it like where the fire starts kicking off and the person who's being fired at, it almost takes them a couple seconds, a couple moments to realize what is happening. Then they react. And, hindsight's 2020 are looking, you're looking at from the outside perspective, you would feel that you would react immediately to the first movement, the first pop, whatever it is. But now hearing you guys talk about this, like it takes time, it takes seconds for you to like really process what the fuck is going on at that moment. I'm like, damn, I could see that. And I could see the reaction of the many videos that I've watched, and it makes a lot of sense. That's what I'm trying to say. It makes a lot of sense.
And honestly, from a teaching standpoint, I always tell
Yes,
my students, there's a thing called the UDA Loop.
Oh yeah, we talked about
And
that.
I know you guys are aware of the OODA Loop.
Mhm.
But, for a bad guy to decide they're going to commit an act of violence, it takes about 2.5 seconds. For you to realize there's an act of violence being directed towards you and to respond, it takes over 3 seconds. So you're already behind the power curve.
Gotcha.
But I can tell you that night, I was way behind that. Like it felt like an eternity. I was like, what's going on here, guys? And I'm like, oh shit, this is what they tell us about in the books.
Right. Honestly, they're just mad about he was in the infantry and he deployed to Iraq but didn't get in any fucking action. They took some fucking rounds while like it was indirect, and it was like pew, pew, off in the distance, and they wanted to return fire and stuff because they obviously wanted a car, and I don't give them got a car. And he was always pissed about it, and I was like, dude. And I always just joke. I was like, I never deployed when I was in the Marine Corps. That's a whole nother story. But when I became a cop, that's when I actually got in. I've been in more shootings or firefights than you have, and I would always fuck with him about it, and he would always get pissed. So, it happens. Honestly, there's so many Marines that get screwed over. They deploy and they don't see anything, and even though they're supposed to. There's guys who are slated to deploy, they don't deploy. There's so many people with similar stories inside of the military that kind of get screwed over, or they don't get to deploy when they're supposed to be deployed. They're promised something and it gets yanked the fucking way from. That's just the story of the military. Hurry up and wait, and nothing's ever going to be promised to you, even when it is.
Correct.
Yeah. So.
Correct. And then my second deployment was to Ramadi. Now, for me, even being a Pogue, Ramadi was pretty crazy. It was off the chain.
How so?
It really just, we would get hit. I mean, our camp would get hit nonstop.
Okay.
It was constant IEDs. It was constant V beds at the gate. This would have been in 2005, 2006, and I don't know if you remember the political landscape of the war at that time. It was off the chain there. But I was part of a forward communications detachment providing relay communications to infantry and special operations. So it was a kick-ass deployment for me. And I did a really good job as the ComDet team leader, got some awards, got some recommendations. Like my military career is and I, because I'd planned on doing 20 years or 20 plus, I'd intended on retiring from the Marine Corps.
Right.
And so we get back from Ramadi, and I'm living life, man. By then I'm a sergeant. I'm getting great fitness reports. I'm getting awards. I'm getting letters of recommendation, commendation, all of that stuff, right? And I'm starting to look at like career progression, like my career ladder. I'm starting to look at B billets and stuff like that. But I start to go off the rails outside of work. Pretty hardcore. I just start partying and just drinking like a fiend. And I ended up running afoul of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. I had an alcohol-related incident, and
this is after your second deployment to Ramadi.
Correct. Okay. And I was like, oh well, what do I do now? Because my whole identity was the Marine Corps. But I was one of those Marines, and maybe you were too. Is like, when I was in the field or if I was deployed, like I was that kind of Marine. Like when I was in garrison, it was like, I don't know why we have all these rules and regulations that some of them don't make any sense to me. So, right. And so I got in trouble, and I got an NJP, I got non-judicial punishment, and I got busted down, and I lost pay, half a month's pay for 2 months, and 45 days of restriction to the barracks. But yeah, I went to battalion.
Damn, you got grounded.
Yeah, man. And what's crazy is my commanding officer of headquarters battalion at the time was this guy, Colonel David Hogue, which in Marine Corps lore, he's fairly well known because he was one of the Beirut bombing Marines from the 80s.
Okay.
And I remember my first sergeant brought me into, now what I will give my command, my company at least, is post NJP, they didn't treat me like shit because I had a friend when I was stationed in Japan that got NJP'd for something silly. It was like underage drinking or something, right?
Okay.
And the unit treated him like dirt, and he just spiraled. He ended up getting kicked out. He ended up getting kicked out of the Marine Corps.
I've seen that story countless times.
And honestly, I don't really know if this is the platform to address it, but it's like that shit needs to change. If you want to salvage careers and retention, that shit needs to change big time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a leadership issue, but
100%. Well, that's what happens when you're going to have a lot of young leadership that have yet to learn, right? By the time you become a sergeant or a corporal at 3 years and you're 20 years old, right? 21, depending on the cutting score in the boat spaces, allotted for your unit or whatever. It could happen that fast, or it could take a little bit. But what I think happens when guys get promoted too young, they're still in that adolescent mindset, right? They haven't fully fucking matured, or they haven't seen what good leadership looks like, and then they promote. Like I've seen a lot of mainsiders is what we would call them. They would promote, and you'd be like, dude, you have 2.5 fucking years. You have 2 years on. I just got to Lance Corporal. You're a corporal. They're like, yeah, I got meritorious. And I'm like, shit. And you see things kind of like fall apart at the wayside because it's a lack of experience, a lack of what good leadership looks like and what bad leadership looks like. They don't yet understand that, and it's not a fault of their own. It's just a fault of the people who are bringing it up and then promoting them. They're not giving them the experience they need in leadership, and I think that's a big issue.
Do you think
that's completely 100% the right platform?
Do you think that has to do with the turnaround? You know what I'm saying? Like they're expecting like the turnaround time, like where most people don't go career, most people don't. You know what I'm saying? As Bill saying, we're going to do my 4 and get out situation. Do you think that has something to do with it?
Because you can't keep people from promoting, right? So if they got their stuff wired tight, and you're going to promote, and it's just about time and grade too. And if you have the cutting score, I mean, you can't be a piece of shit. If you have the cutting score and no one's non-wrecking your ass, you can promote. It's going to take some time. You'll still promote. I've seen some people who promote. Dude, we had a fucking sergeant who got busted for meth making. And
I'm sorry,
fucking trailer.
Making.
And that wasn't the first issue he had. Yes, making. That wasn't the first issue he had, because he had been NJP busted down to fucking Lance Cooley, back up to corporal, back down to PFC, back up to corporal, and then to sergeant, and then he gets popped. So he had issues that was all leading up to it. No one just in command really thought that he would be making meth, right? So there are people who get promoted who should never have been promoted, right? The criminals are just shitheads, right? It's gonna happen.
And we see that in law enforcement too. When we get to the law enforcement part of my career, man, there's some issues there too, bro. And I know Chuck, but yeah.
Now there was talk about back in the late 90s, early 2000s about convicts or ex-convicts or ex-gang members trying to do a quick out of their area and joining the armed forces of the military. Did you guys see any of that while you were there? Did you guys?
I didn't, not the way that you might be thinking of, because I know what you're talking about. Like you can get in trouble legally, and like the recruiter would go to court with you and be like, "Hey, Your Honor," right? That used to be an official policy. Like the recruiters did that.
Okay.
Then it got to where like they couldn't officially do that, but they still did that, right?
Okay.
The recruiter would be in the back of the courtroom, like, Your Honor. Like,
Oh, just let you know.
2007, they were still doing that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know, because I had multiple guys in my unit into I don't want to say his name, and I'm not going to, but he came in and he was honestly, he's kind of a shithead kind of person. And he came in, he was still a shithead, and he would say the only reason why I'm here is because I didn't want to go to fucking prison. And they let me off of my crime. And that's why I'm here. And he's like, honestly, I'd rather have gone to prison because this shit sucks. And we would always joke about how the Marine Corps was kind of like prison and it had a lot of similarities. Obviously, a lot of differences, but there's a lot of similarities. And he was like, I would much rather have been in prison. This is fucking horrible. I would only have to do like 3 years.
Like I would have been out by now if I'd have went to prison.
Exactly. But now I think because I still follow the guy. He is a vet. He loves the Marine Corps. He speaks nothing but good things and good praises about the Marine Corps. But when he was in, you never would have thought that would have happened. So it actually impacted his life really positively. And
good.
It really helped him out. But yes, I have seen people come in that were bona fide gang members. I have worked with people who were bona fide fucking gang members who weren't afraid to say, I was in a gang. I've seen people who were bona fide gang members who turned their life around and used the Marine Corps as a platform to change and completely moved and changed their life in the opposite direction. And so they weren't like, they didn't really got in any issues, but they were young when they got brought up in their gang. And the next thing you know, like, fuck it, I don't want to do this anymore. I got out and I left. And the only way to out was to completely go to a different part of the country, join the military, and then live in a different part of the country. So he grew up in one part, went to the Marine Corps, and then he left, turned his life around, and moved to a different part of the country where he knew no one. And the dude's a fucking solid cop.
And honestly, people have asked me that before, bro. They're like, hey, like, honestly, maybe you could make the argument that we shouldn't let certain people be cops, but there's a lot of people that I think could really make a difference being in the military, and they could live their life. But because of their record, they can't do it. Like, I do think there should be some reform there for certain felonies. I'm like, not for nothing, we're training these young men and women to go do violence. So if we can control that violence, like, why would we not want them in the military?
Why not utilize it? Look at the French Foreign Legion.
100%.
So those guys are all criminals, or at least that's how it was started. You want to fucking get your freedom? French Foreign Legion, serve, go fight, and you survive, you're done. And that was their way out. I mean, but I think that, and I think that's a whole nother freaking podcast to talk about with, what does it look like for people who were brought up in wrong circumstances culturally? That's all they fucking knew. And they were growing up in it, and all their close uncles and stuff like that were all part of a gang, or they lived in a high gang area, which was very likely that you're probably going to get swooped up in this because your lack of family at home, you're looking for a family. And it just kind of makes sense that you're looking towards something else when you're like, this isn't what I signed. This isn't what I want to do. I'm young. I'm going to fuck my life up. I'm going to go join the military. So I don't think people should be penalized because they grew up in a shitty fucking area, and culturally that was okay and that was the norm. So they knew nothing better. But when they realized it and they're like, I'm going to change my life, I don't think that should be penalized and looked down. As long as you haven't been convicted of any crimes, I think you should be open to doing whatever. But
I agree 100%.
And the dude's a solid fucking cop. I'm not going to say where he works for, his name or anything like that. Not that I remember, but the dude's solid. He was one of the most people. I looked up to this guy, and he did I think 8 to 12 years. I think he was trying to do a career, but then he left after I think 12, and he went and became a cop. But that dude was a wealth of knowledge. He was articulate. He was smart. You never would have guessed.
And yet he has the street knowledge to work successfully amongst people.
Right. And to say this, he never committed any crimes in the commission for the gang or anything like that. He was just brought up, and it was a case of circumstance where he didn't know anything else. Yeah. He realized, and he's growing up, he's like, I'm done. I got to get out. And he got out, and that was smart. But that's, now I've also worked in major metropolitan cities where gangs will send their people to the army, which is commonly known and documented that the army has lower standards for hiring and things like that to get people in, especially when it was in time of war. They were taking everyone. Neck tattoos, fans tattoos, face tattoos, didn't matter. Marine Corps was a big fucking hard no. But so there were people that were going in specifically to learn the knowledge to bring it back to their gang, to further their gang, and to bring back those tactics to teach them. And I've seen those tactics, fire team tactics, actively in shootings as in other parts of the city that I worked as well. And it's
Well, it's
it's
like
known. It's
I'm
known
about
as
an
a
hour and a half. I'm about an hour and a half north of Atlanta, and there was an Atlanta PD officer that got killed a few years ago. And honestly, he walked right into what was, if you look at it, like this is an L ambush.
Mhm.
This is exactly what
Yeah.
this is, L ambush. So
It's all
I wonder
learned
where they learned
and
that.
taught. Yeah. Yeah. Military. And it happens, especially during the time of, we need so many people to go and fight a war. We know a lot of them are
Right.
going to die. So we're going to take
Right.
in so many. People are falling through the cracks. And it is exactly like what you said, Aaron. We know that there are going to be people who in here are fucking not the best people. But if we can control their anger and control their fire, we can utilize them as a fucking weapon. And that's what was done. That's why so many things were falling through the cracks, is because they're utilizing these people that they know might be checkered past. They might have some involvement with whatever, just based on the area that they're recruiting them from. Fuck it. As long as they don't have any open crimes, we're going to send them in because we can utilize that, harness that mindset to help us. And chances are the 50-50 might make it back, might not, but I've seen it. I've also talked to gang members who have talked about it. That's how
I mean,
they
I've,
learn.
I've had clients.
Yeah.
I've had clients that told me, and I've had clients during that time that were coming in. They're actually stationed over in Pendleton and stationed around Los Angeles, and they're coming through and like, hey, they're getting work done, and some of them are getting some of their stuff covered from when they're when they're some of the neighborhood stuff covered, and some of them were getting it fixed. It's not with me, but they're getting they're getting neighborhood stuff. I play neutral, man. You know what I'm saying? I play neutral.
Yeah.
I don't deal with that shit from anybody. I know money's money, but I can't be the guy that does your set on you. Just won't do it.
Exactly. I mean, cover up would be fucking cool because you're leaving that life, but
yeah,
re-inking it or making it more vibrant because you're getting ready to get out.
No, exactly, exactly. And you're on leave for the week, so and that's the one that got me. It's like when I had an old friend of mine, a guy I worked with at the shop, and he went reserve. He went from active to reserve, and he was in a reserve. They took a long time to roll him out. He was in the army, and they took a long time to actually roll him out. And he was like essentially like a sergeant. He's like an E5 or whatever it was.
Really?
Anyways, he wound up getting his hands tattooed while he was still in. And I was like, well, I thought you can't do that. He's like, yeah, they're going back and forth, and right now we can, so we're all rushing out to get it. So you're going to get a bunch of my unit guys coming through and getting shit blasted the fuck up because we know they're going to take it away. So a bunch of guys were coming into the shop and getting fucking blasted, like knuckles up, neck. And then I hear a couple weeks later, hey, we're going to have to cancel appointments because, they're rolling back on that. And they rolled it back for like 6 or 8 months. And then they went ahead and then, like you said, Chuck, they just needed anybody who's wanted to sign up, so they opened that shit back up, and then the guys were right back in the fucking shop getting work done.
Yeah, and that went on for a really long time. In fact, I still think that their tattoo policy is very, very lenient because when I was getting out,
it's a lot more lax.
Leave, I tried getting back in, and the military Marine Corps guy was like, "Hey, I need to see your SRB, your medical record, or your file to make sure that all those tattoos are annotated in there. Because if they're not, we can't accept you." Long story short, none of them were there. And then I was like, but I got them all while I was in, except for one. And that was the only one that was in my file, was the one I had prior. They didn't give a shit when I was in, which kind of screwed me over when I tried to re-enlist, because if I would have re-enlisted, because I had a good re-enlistment package, I would have been fine. I would have been able to re-enlist. But because I went on terminal, it didn't fucking matter that I had a good re-enlistment code. It only mattered that my shit wasn't in there, and they didn't want to hire me. And then they said, hey, go to the Army, they'll take you. And that was in 2011, And I was like, damn, dude.
That tracks. That was around that time. That's exactly around that time.
Yeah. So Aaron, you had your basically fucking not, you got busted down, you had your NJP, and you have 2 more deployments that you did.
Correct.
How soon after that incident did they send you on a deployment? Because I know my buddy, he got in trouble. Same thing happened. They NJP'd him. 3 months later, they shipped him to fucking Afghanistan.
No, it was my decision.
Okay.
What happened? And to be honest with you, I don't remember. It was relatively short. It was longer than 3 months though. But I was like, man, I've got to get out of here. If I'm going to overcome this, because I remember prior to my NJP, my first sergeant taking me to his office. He's like, look, Jurgen, he was like, you can go in there and you can plead your case if you'd like. He's like, I'm not trying to stop you. You have that right. He goes, but I'm gonna be honest with you. He's like, the colonel is at home right now, probably eating dinner with his wife. What happens in your NJP, that's all a show. While he's eating dinner with his wife right now, he already knows what he's going to do to you. He's like, so just remember, you're going to get busted probably from sergeant to corporal, but you're still an NCO, and you need to get your head right as to how you're going to overcome this. And I was like, okay. And, good on
Fair.
you for telling me that, because
That's
a
solid
lot of
leadership.
units,
Yeah.
it really is. A lot of units would have just like, fuck you, you're worthless to us now. And so I went in there. I just took my lumps and got busted down. And I was like, I want to go on the next deployment to Iraq. I'm like, I need to get out of here. So I volunteered and I did 2 back-to-back deployments after that. I came home. I went to Iraq. I came back for about 3 months. I went TAD to another unit, went back to Iraq. Got re-promoted, good fit reps, got another award. Like I overcame it. But then it came up time to re-enlist again. And I was like, I've got a good re-enlistment code, right? But I was like, I don't think I can overcome this NJP. It'll be on my record. Like, I don't know that I can pick up staff sergeant. And I was like, if I do, I'll be terminal. But I was like, I really don't even think I can. And I had a lot of senior enlisted and a lot of officers willing to write me letters and everything. But I was like, if I re-enlist and I don't get promoted at 13 years, I'm still a sergeant, I'm terminaled out, right? I was like, then what I'm going to do?
Right.
So I decided to get out, and I became an EMT. And
Around what year was this?
this was in 2008.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I became an EMT because I was going to be, even though I ended up being a cop, and nothing against it, my cop brothers and sisters, but like, I'm going to be a firefighter, bro. Why? Because everybody loves firefighters.
Because they get the pussy.
There's no cop calendars, right?
Right.
Firefighters don't go around looking for fires. They just call you when they need you.
Right.
But the fire service in my area wasn't hiring, but I had some family and law enforcement that were hiring pretty heavy. So I got hired on the sheriff's office here, and I started out in corrections.
How long were you EMT for before you got hired on too?
About 5 years, 4 years.
Oh, okay. Good amount of time.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I actually kept it up until a couple years ago.
Gotcha.
It was just a good skill to have. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I started out in corrections, and honestly, man, I love corrections. Like, now working in schools, I have all these conversations with educators, and they think everybody needs to have a PhD to get by in life. And I'm like, we started talking about hiring practices in law enforcement. And I do think that they need to reform that. But I was like, you guys will take a kid fresh out of college and make him a cop because they look good on paper. They have a 4.0. They've got a degree in criminal justice or whatever. And I said, he or she has no life experience. I said, if you want a sociology education or an education in psychology or human behavior, work in corrections. I said, I learned more in corrections because you get groups of people who don't normally hang out together. You force them to live together, and you just get to observe it, right? I did that for about 2.5 years. Got my face broke. Like, it was a good time. I earned my stripes in corrections, and then I applied to go to patrol, and I got selected for patrol.
Nice. Before we get into your law enforcement career, Dylan asked something that's our producer. He asked something prior to the show, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up while we were still on the Marine Corps thing, on your Marine Corps topic. So you deployed 4 times, you're getting ready to re-enlist, and for people who don't understand, you're like, well, he could have re-enlisted and he could have tried. Well, there's things, if you're not making staff sergeant in a certain amount of years, if you're a staff sergeant and you don't promote out from staff sergeant in a certain amount of years, you basically, they tell you can't re-enlist. It doesn't matter if you have 14, 15, 16 years in. If you hadn't made it past staff sergeant in that time, you are getting booted out. It doesn't matter. I've seen it happen to so many people. So his choice to do it was made on a calculated decision that he has seen prior to other people. I just wanted people to know that he didn't just quit. He didn't just give up. That's what the reality of what he was looking at. And then Dylan asked a code red. And now I'm a Marine, and I've never heard this term. You were on main side, so I don't know. I was in in the back of the sticks in Camp Lejeune, fucking with MARSOC and engineers and tracks. Like we didn't. Completely different world aside from Camp Lejeune. We went to maybe main side once a week.
Correct.
Maybe. So I've never heard this term. It's called code red. It's a term used to refer to hazing a Marine, which is against Marine Corps policy. I've never heard of the term code red. Have you?
There's a whole movie about it.
It's from the movie A Few Good Men.
Right.
Oh, it's not a term that I'm familiar with.
Yeah. So do I know any Marines that use that term? No, I don't. Did hazing happen in the Marine Corps? Yes, it did.
Yes.
But it's a don't ask, don't tell kind of policy, right? You're not supposed to really talk about it, right? Like,
yeah, what happens in Fight Club stays in Fight Club. You don't talk about Fight Club. Like it is what it is.
Right.
People, and hazing's still happening. Hazing's never going to go away. I think it should. I think that types of hazing are bad. Certain types of it, and you have mature people who are doing it that aren't teaching a lesson, because hazing is supposed to be a type of incentive training, ITing, that teaches you the errors of your ways. And it teaches you not to do it, but you learn through basically corporal punishment or a type of like physical labor punishment, like let's pick up all the dirt off the dirt type of thing. Like dumb shit that you're going to be out there.
They were big on physical labor when I was stationed in Japan, and even as a young Marine, I had to undergo some of that. But I'll be honest with you, and I kind of am along the same lines you are. Do I think some of it needs to go away? Absolutely. Some of it's
like
ridiculous.
throwing people in a fucking dryer, like a fucking dryer that you can walk in and turning it on, fucking tumble. That's not.
But is there a place for certain like legitimate IT? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Because I had to go sweat. I had to go get strong one time in Okinawa, and when I was young Lance Corporal, and it fixed the problem, and it didn't affect my pros and cons. It didn't affect my career. So I have no problem with it to a certain extent.
Yeah, like your guys are fucking off, and you're the corporal or the sergeant, and all your younger Marines or junior Marines, and probably in some corporals too, fucking off, and you're like, all right, guys, you guys have been dicking around all day. We're going to end today early, but we're going on a fucking platoon run. And we're going to go on a platoon run until I get tired. And you run your balls off for the next few hours. Then they bring you back, and then they go, okay, time to PT. Let's get ready for that PT test. And this is because you guys all fucked up. Don't ever do this again. And then you do basically like a little mock fucking PFT, right? So you're doing all your push-ups and your sit-ups and your pull-ups and whatever. You've already done your run, and that's just a way to finish you off and smoke the shit out of you so that you don't do it again. Correct. And I think that's completely 100% justified, okay, good to go, because that teaches people there are consequences for your actions, and where the military is trying to do is overcome a lot of the things your parents fucked up, and you may have never had consequences for your actions, and that's why you're still being a little dick while you're in the military. And we need to break that shit out of you and let you know that your actions have consequences. The things you say have consequences and repercussions and ramifications. So you need to be careful and not fuck up, because if you fuck up, this is what's going to happen. And you fuck up more, it's going to get worse. Like, we're going to do an early field day on a Wednesday, get you ready for tomorrow, type of shit. And you're going to clean all day.
And that's going to be for like the whole unit, right? That's not because like one person fucked up, right?
100% you do the whole fucking unit. Or what happened to me, I gave away a water buffalo in 29 Palms because I got big dicked by a fucking...
I'm sorry. When you say a water buffalo, I'm thinking... Oh.
Big water tank?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I gave that away.
What do you mean you gave it away?
So we're in the desert. We have no water.
Right.
Put it that way. And I had to go. I was corporal. I was not a corporal yet. So I was a fucking PFC. Mm-hmm. And we were at 29 Palms watching our vehicles. The fucking... dude, he was an officer, came over with his sergeant. His sergeant already came over. He was the sergeant of the guard, and he was like, hey, I need your fucking water buffalo. Shit happened. And I was like, no, not happening, sergeant. I'm in charge of this. You can't take it. He kept yelling at me, and I sent a runner, go get a fucking NCO. Before I could get that NCO, a fucking officer came down and big dicked me and said, you're going to get in trouble. I'm going to fucking... He threatened me with a bunch of shit, like punishments and things like that. And I was like, whoa, this is... Sir, like, this is getting crazy. I have my NCO. So, no, we're taking this. And he took the water. 5 minutes later, my NCO fucking gets down there. And I'm pretty sure it was Corporal Enns at the time. He came down, was like, what happened? Then he grabbed me by my fucking neck. We went all the way back to our hooch. I had to fucking let the staff sergeant know. I had to let fucking my sergeants know. And they IT'd the whole fucking unit while I sat in the center and watched them pull out all their gear to do inspection at fucking like 10 p.m. at night. So everyone was pissed off and tired. That's another way to do it, because now everyone's pissed off at you and then they're going to go beat the shit out of you. There's that type of shit too.
So bars in the pillowcases. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like they'll grab you and beat the shit out of you. Like they'll hold you down. It won't be a fair fight. They'll fuck you up.
Damn.
Luckily,
I did have a
to me,
Marine in my company. It wasn't in my platoon, but I was made aware of this. He was just nasty. He was unhygienic, and his sergeant took him to the shower and made him shower by the numbers. And it made his mom angry. She called her congressman. But guess what? That kid took a shower every day after that.
Oh, shit. I've seen that.
What do you mean shower by the numbers?
Like pick up the soap now, lift your arm up now, scrub now.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
100%. And that sounds crazy, but then I would put it to you, why are we having to teach grown men how to shower? It's because parents.
Yeah, your mama and your papa didn't fucking teach you right, so now we got to. Dude, I had to rip someone out of their fucking trailer. Basically fucking kidnap him. I mean, it's not kidnapping because he's a department. He's an extension of the military. He's a piece of property, so we can go and recover our property. So we had to go and recover fucking property. He just ended up being a human being, and had to rip him out of his fucking house in the middle of a field, in the middle of bumfuck Egypt, dude. Bumfuck nowhere. Sorry, it's probably not a good term to use anymore, but bumfuck nowhere, dude. And there was no power. Like, he was just a shanty little shack in the middle of the field. We had to go and take him. Yeah, because he was AWOL.
How'd you know he was there?
We got tipped off.
Okay.
Because not only was I a fucking crew chief and stuff, but I was also like a chaser and things like that. So I would go and chase. We'd take people from the brig and stuff like that, like bad dudes from the brig, and we would take them around, take them to their appointments, and chauffeur them as basically prison guards. So that's what was one of my work that I did. So I was used to it. So we had to go and apprehend this motherfucker, and with a group of guys, and it was just like 2 or 3 NCOs, and we went and took him.
Ain't that some shit?
He got in trouble. He got fucking NJP'd. He got hazed a little bit. Picked up some fucking dirt off some dirt. It was military is different. I mean, we were talking about NJPing earlier, and my buddy, he the dumbest shit you can get NJP for, because you are property. You're an extension of the military. You are not a person. You are property, basically, when you go enlist. He body surfing, broke his fucking neck. They NJP'd him fucking 45 days reduction of pay, and then 45 days of he had to stay in the barracks.
Hey Chuck, give me that NJP. Give me the
non-judicial punishment.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
the non-military description.
Yeah, so he got a non-judicial punishment from the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
Right.
Because they said he destroyed government property.
Ain't that some shit?
Yeah. And then after he was almost done, he was a fucking corporal when that happened. They busted him. He was about to pick up sergeant. They busted him back down. And then his buddy, who was a corporal with him, was being a dick to him because he got orders to talk shit to him and just be an asshole to him. And he was a buddy.
Okay.
So he was doing it, and he basically told that guy that he was wrong and to go fuck himself. And then they busted him down again.
Yeah, man, I had a buddy that was he was older than me at the time. He was a Marine from the Black Hawk Down days. He had been a Marine to Somalia.
Okay.
He got out. He was highly decorated in Somalia. He got out. He came back in after 9/11. He's home on leave. He is home on leave. I don't know what happened, but he gets hemmed up by the cops. He gets a weapons charge. All right. He's locked up. He gets found not guilty, right? He gets found not guilty. Not like charges were dropped. He went to trial. He was found not guilty.
Okay.
The Marine Corps still NJP'd him because while he was locked up, he was not available to the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
How the fuck make that make sense to me?
This dude has a Bronze Star for action in Somalia.
Make that make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But you can get double jeopardy. So, like, if you've heard double jeopardy is like it can't be a thing in the civilian world where you know, judge finds you not guilty and
you can't be tried. Yeah, you can't be tried twice for the same thing. Yeah.
You can in the military. So you could be out in town. You could get, let's say, a DUI, right?
Okay.
And you're going to have to spend 6 months in county. And you either spend your 6 months in county or the Marine Corps or military comes in and goes, hey, we'll take him and we'll punish him here. And we'll put him in the brig here. Or you serve your time for whatever happened out in town.
Sure.
Come back they release you back to the military. They don't release you just like, hey, out the front door. They release you in the custody of the military fucking brig unit. Chasers come down. They handcuff you. They take you back on base, and then they throw you into the brig for another whatever. You could have spent 6 months in jail out in town, but you could spend the next year in the fucking brig because their punishment's stricter than what just happened out to you out in town because they have more things that they're tacking on. Missing movements. You're fucking not available for this. We're going to fucking NJP you for this. There's all these things that you broke. You went out in town, did something stupid and got arrested. So now you're getting in trouble twice. It's crazy.
Well, I'm kind of like when it comes to that, I mean, like you fucked around, like, you know, let's kind of fuck around and find out you're out too drunk, you know, saying like, well, you're on duty, not on duty, but obviously you're off, but you're on active, you're off that time. Fucking DUI, run over some shit, destroy some property, kind of like,
or counterfeiting,
or fucking cooking up meth, apparently,
or cooking up meth. And so what happens with him? So this fucking piece of shit will go and spend his time out in town because he was out. I think he was out in a regular jail.
Okay.
Out in town. So once he gets released from there, let's say he does the next 10, 15 years for manufacturing and selling and child abuse because he had kids there. So he's getting hit with all these different felonies. When he gets fucking released after his 10, 15, 20 years in prison, I would not be surprised if the Marine Corps comes in and goes, motherfucker, when you did this, you were active. So now you're coming back to us. And now we're going to put you in the fucking brig. And then we're going to kick you the fuck out, dishonorable discharge. And you're going to spend the next fucking...
That's interesting that they wouldn't...
30 years in prison.
They wouldn't roll him out. Like, they wouldn't roll him out while he was, you know what I'm saying? That's interesting that they would do that. Like,
sometimes they will discharge them.
Sure.
Yeah. Sometimes, like what Chuck's saying, exactly is what will happen.
Kind of insult to injury. Well, I mean, yeah.
Most of the time, they're going to want their people. So they're like, hey, just give them to us. We'll give them fucking 25 years. We'll give them 10 years. We'll give them 15 years. Just give them back to us because we want to fix our problem. They'll take ownership of it for sure. But
wow,
it's like, if it's going to happen, you don't know. And like, you kind of want that to happen. You're like, I don't want to get spent here and then have to go. I'd rather just be taken to the fucking brig and do my time there. Because then, you know, once you're done, you're done. Right.
Ain't that some shit? I had no idea. I had no idea that the little 1-2, like the little okie doke, you know?
Yeah.
Ain't that something?
So, Aaron, we brought you on. We're running out of time. It's we're 8 minutes over. I want to hear about your law enforcement because on the heels of getting out of the military, because of everything that had happened, and you not thinking that you wanted to go forward, you ended up joining the police department.
I'm like, let's bring him back for our time if he wants to come back.
No, yeah.
Can we do a part, can we do a part two?
I would really like to talk about my addiction issues because I think there's more out there that probably would want to hear it, whether they know it or not.
Sure.
And I want to dedicate more of an episode to that, not just the next 15 minutes on it. I would like to spend the next 30, 40 minutes talking about it because I think that that'll have a big impact on people. And I think if we can tee that up for next week and have you back on immediately, just to go right into part 2 of your struggle because you obviously had some struggles inside of the military, which caused you to get NJP'd. And I think that came off the heels of your second deployment to Ramadi. Right. So there's probably some of that in play there that's going to carry over into the next 2 years of next 2 deployments, plus you going out. You're still struggling with it, I'm assuming. And then you get in and it just kind of comes to a head. And I think that would be a great thing to speak about on part 2 And
man.
If you'd like to come back, I'd like to have you for a part 2 and get more into depth.
okay, yeah. And do you have any? I agree. And do you have any like anything you want to plug, or charities or causes that you really feel really strong about? That
Not right now.
Okay.
But I'll definitely have some stuff teed up for next time. But if any of
Awesome.
your followers want to just follow me and kind of see, I've documented kind of my journey on my social media. So
Throw
if
it
they
out there.
want to, if
and
they want
what's
to check
that
out my
social media?
Yeah, throw it out there, man. Give it a plug.
on my Instagram, it's at a.d.jurgen, and Jurgen is Yeargan.
Perfect. Awesome. That's awesome. And look forward to part 2. Look forward to getting in there. And I know that I had a lot of questions, and we had to kind of set up the timing and everything as far as the initial part of your service and so on and so forth, and give some people a background. But yeah, I would love to definitely get you in if possible next week, and go ahead and give you the platform. So part 2, get into that, get into the addiction part of things. And like you said, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there going through with it, or have gone through it, and know someone's gone through with it, and definitely would like to hear it, and definitely
Absolutely.
get some positivity and get some light into what's going on. And I think that's
sure.
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
it's prevalent. I'm sorry, man. I'm not saying addiction is prevalent in law enforcement, but it's out there. And sometimes I think some departments, it's like, as long as you're performing when you're in that uniform, which I was, they don't really care about. You could be totally off the rails when you're off duty. And I'm like, that probably needs to change.
Yeah. And honestly, it's addiction does plague law enforcement. I'll just come out right out there and fucking say it. I'm still involved in law enforcement to this day. Until I medically retire or whatever, the doctors unfuck themselves and figure their shit out. But there is a big problem in law enforcement. I lost a friend to addiction. She was a solid cop. In the last conversation we had, she was going through some shit, and we had an argument. A week later, she fucking died because she was struggling with an injury. And we're not saying drug addicts. We're not saying people come in and they're just like doing fucking heroin and snorting coke off hookers' asses.
But
what happens is you get an injury,
right?
You get your meds, and then let's say something happens, you're depressed, and you're like, fuck it, you're still out injured. You get kind of ostracized, no one's really talking to you. You're still dealing with whatever the fucking baggage you were dealing with before that happened to you on the job. Because face it, if you're a cop for any length of time, you're dealing with some hardcore shit eventually. And it's going to come to a head, and it's going to hit you like a shit ton of bricks. And a lot of the times that happens when you're out injured. And now you're prescribed opiates because they prescribe opiates for pain. And then you've probably already had you already probably been decompressing with alcohol. So when you mix that into the mix, it becomes very dangerous and volatile. And she didn't try to, but she killed herself. She fucking took some pain pills for her back. Next thing you know, she's drinking a couple glasses of whiskey.
Right.
And it was a bad mix, and she passed away. And I see that, and that's what I'm really talking about with addiction. It's not that they're drug addicts, but they are dealing with shit, and they just coping with bad ways and bad mechanisms, and it's just bad coping mechanisms. And especially while you're out injured and too dangerous drugs. Because if you're healthy, you wouldn't be like, I'm gonna go get some fucking oxys or some Percocets or some Vicodin, and then I'm gonna go home and drink fucking whiskey. No, that's not. We're not drug seekers. We're not. But you get injured and you have all this stuff at your disposal. It's.
I think people.
Really thinking you're.
I think people forget that it's an honorable job, but it's still a job. These are quote unquote regular people. These are people. You know what I'm saying? These are people, and people. People have faults. They have, you know what I'm saying? We're all human. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
no one's perfect.
People can make no one's perfect. People can make mistakes. They can be led down a wrong path in a right way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things can turn very easily. Right. I don't want to get too much into this. Like that's
a whole nother
tidbit. Yeah. No, but we're gonna get into it. We are gonna definitely get into it. I don't want to tease too much. You want to tickle the taste buds, but we do not want to quench the thirst, if you will. You know, so. We'll definitely save you. Yeah, we're gonna just tickle you. You know what I'm saying? Hey, how you doing? I'm sorry. I'm part of the locker room. You know what I'm saying? I got a
little bit of Fermunda tickling.
I'm just a little. Hey, good. How you doing? Cool. So, Chuck, if you want to give them the information.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always give this to our guests. I know you've been a long-time listener, so you probably already know what's coming. We always give our guests a chance to dedicate an episode to a fallen brother or sister, and I want to give that opportunity to you. If you do not have one, I do have something ready to go. But if you do, I want to give you the option to dedicate this episode to a fallen brother or sister.
Absolutely. As far as Marine Corps goes, I want to dedicate this episode to Corporal Lindsey Gribbin.
Corporal D. Griffin, rest easy, brother.
Gribbin, Gribben.
I'm sorry.
GRI.
Rest easy, brother. We got it from here, but you said Corporal Gribbin?
Gribbin. Mm-hmm.
Gribbin.
Sorry,
Thank you. We'll make sure we get that right.
Yeah, Corporal Gribbin. Well, rest easy. We got it from here, brother. Man, dedications, we'll never stop doing them. We hope to stop doing them, but unfortunately, it's just we have to honor those who are no longer here with us. And if we can ever, or we can stop honoring, would be an amazing day. But the chances of that ever happening, it's slim, because people are dealing with stuff, and they lose their lives and crazy ways and horrible ways and sad ways, and we got to be out there. And if I want to say this, if you have a buddy who's struggling, you have a sister who's struggling, they're out injured or they're in the military and something just seems off, ask them, hey, everything okay? You good? Because you'll be able to tell. There'll be small things. Just no harm in asking, hey, are you okay? Hey, you want to go grab a bite? Because you never know when someone might need that, and it might change. We've seen far too many stories of someone reaching out and that saves the other person, that are they're close to me. So it will work. So don't be afraid. Hey, are you okay? So I just want to put that out there. Aaron, I want to thank you for coming on. I look forward to having you back on.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome, brother. Thank you so much. And we really hope to dive into that addiction stuff and talk about your next chapters in your life and where you are currently and how you overcame a lot of things. And I think that'll be a very impactful episode. So guys, look forward to that next week. It'll be part 2 with Aaron. And we'll finish going over all of his stories. I just want to say right now, thank you for everyone who's supporting us. If you already follow us, please like and share a post. If you don't, go to our Instagram at war_stories_official and our Facebook at War Stories Podcast. Like and support us there, share a post. You can go to link in our bio and you can get to our Instagram, our Facebooks, our socials, our YouTube, our podcast, our website, which is www.warstoriesofficial.com. You can grab some gear. We're pretty busy right now. We have a bunch of guests getting ready to come on. We have part 2 happening with Aaron next week. So if we're, haven't gotten back to you right away, just know that we're working on it. And if you put an order into the store, we're currently working on the store right now and on the website to change everything, since we're changing everything over. So be patient with us there. And we also have a TikTok that will be added to the link in the bio. So go ahead and check that out. War Stories Official TikTok or something like that. And like and follow us there. We have 400 followers. So let's try to get that up and start breaking that algorithm. And if you want to be featured on the show, go to booking.warstories@gmail.com. Again, that is booking.warstories@gmail.com, and I can get you booked. We're always looking for veterans, law enforcement, corrections, dispatchers, fire, medics, and veterans. If you have a friend who you think would be a great fit, give them our info. Show them our Instagram or Facebook.
We're always looking for dominatrix too.
Hey, if you're a dominatrix and you're a listener, you know a dominatrix, give them our info so we can bring them on to locker room.
To chit chat. More than happy to have them on.
Yeah.
We will
any military
address
guys out there, if you know any strippers or if you married any strippers,
we will address you as mistress, whatever it is.
Hold on.
We're respectful that way.
Military guys marry strippers and date strippers all the time. If you have created a life with a stripper, please write into us, booking.warstories@gmail.com. Again, that is booking.warstories@gmail.com. Send us your story. Let's get you on the show and talk about how military stripper. Hey, I've seen it happen. I saw a guy he married, had kids. I want some more info on that. So again, that is booking.warstories@gmail.com. Send us your story. If you have a friend you think would be a great fit, send them that info, link us up, and we can get them booked. Thank you for the support. Stay safe, everyone.
And until next time,
come home with your shielder on it.
That's right. Hey, I remembered. Look at that.
Yeah. Good job, buddy.
Go me.